Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our July council meeting. We are going to kick off today with a closed session. Be it resolved that it is moved by Councillor Karen, second by Councillor Hunter. Be it resolved that council agenda as presented on July 21st, 2026 be approved as circulated. All in favor? Please vote. That carries. Thank you. And then it is moved by Councillor Jorgensen, second by Councillor Barney. Be it resolved that the next portion of the meeting be closed to the public in order to consider personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. Please vote. That carries. Thank you. And I'll just let the public know we'll be back at 2 o'clock for our working session.
I do have this working now, which is great. So, stop moving. There you go.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back. We were in a closed session, and you can expect something to come out of the closed session at the council agenda later today after committee of a whole. It is moved by Councillor Karen, second by Councillor Hunter. Be it resolved that the council agenda as presented, is it committee of the whole? Or, committee of the whole agenda of January 21st, 2026 be approved as circulated. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest today, council? Okay, seeing none. And I will go over to Councillor Jorgensen for the land.
Not yet.
Nope. Oh, we don't do that till afterwards. Okay, welcome. So, welcome Zoe and Emily.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we sure can.
Okay,
And
perfect.
we have our Madam Clerk is going to give you an introduction. So we'll throw it to you in just a minute.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you, everyone. So we are doing a working session today for our accessibility strategic plan. During the budget process and work plan updates through legislative services, there is in place an accessibility strategic plan, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So as council are aware, the AODA, Accessibility for Ontarians with Disability Act, identified that all of Ontario was to be completely accessible by 2025 with a variety of standards, integrated standards, customer service standard, built environment standard, et cetera, et cetera. We're now in 2026, and we felt that this was, which is why staff recommended this study be included in the capital budget, was that we've now made it through 20 years of this legislation, and we need to be looking proactively about next steps to ensure that we have a completely accessible community. One of those steps is, of course, a strategic plan to help guide us on what we need to do internally, our facilities, and a guiding document for accessibility path for the future. So the purpose of the project is to review the municipality's current accessibility practices, identify gaps and opportunities for improvements, and establish a clear roadmap through the plan to strengthen compliance and improve accessibility across our municipal services, facilities, and operations. So the RFP went out earlier this spring, which was awarded to Laura Consulting. So Zoe and Emily are here today. Laura is currently in the review phase. Last week they were around the community doing lots of site visits, in-person audits of town facilities, parks. We've also released a survey for both the public and internally for staff. I'm not sure, but I did see some of you guys at the farmers market, so I hope you had a good time there. The consultants also attended the accessibility committee last Thursday to gather further feedback from the committee members on the town's current accessibility environment. So they are here today to collect council's feedback as part of that same engagement process. So I'll now move it over to Zoe and Emily to take it away. I do hope you're able to share your presentation. But if you can't.
I was just about to ask if there's a permission aspect on your end, because I'm clicking share screen, but there's no pop-up for me to select.
Interesting. Hold on.
If you are able to, that would be great. But if not, much of what my brief presentation was going to cover, you spoke to, and I'm happy to speak to some of those details while we look at the technical component.
Yes, you get that going, and I will see what I can do. And if not, then I'll just put it up myself.
Okay, sounds good. So thank you, everyone. As Kayla mentioned, my name is Zoe, and I'm joined with my colleague, Emily, who's in the background and going to be supporting with some note-taking. I don't believe her camera is working right now, but we're with a firm called Lura, L-U-R-A. And it stands for Listen, Understand, Relate, Advance. And it is our approach to community engagement. So I apologize for my darty eyes, but I'm just going to look at the presentation to make sure I'm covering. Oh, there we go. Perfect. If you can go to our next slide. The next slide. Yeah, perfect. So we'll briefly just introduce ourselves. We'll look forward to meeting council during our discussion. I'll go through a quick context presentation just in terms of the accessibility strategic plan development process. And then really the focus is to have our discussion to hear your feedback on challenges, priorities, and ideas. So if you go to the next slide, I was just briefly talking about Lura and our role. So we are a community engagement firm that also works on participatory processes and strategy development. We were retained to help with the accessibility strategic plan, and we look forward to further collaboration with the town of Gravenhurst. That is a combination of legislative and policy review, as well as operational assessment, which Kayla spoke about, some of our team on site doing an audit last week. We had started some engagement with the Accessibility Advisory Committee. We're with you and council today, and we will be continuing with some further engagement with town staff and the community at large to inform that strategy development. So our goal is really to develop a community and staff informed plan. If we can go to our next slide. So we recognize some of the existing plans, particularly the 2023 to 2027 strategic plan, which has a key focus on celebrating the community as a welcoming and equitable place where individuals of all ages and abilities can thrive, as well as the 2026 to 2030 multi-year accessibility plan, sometimes referred to as a MIAP. Which speaks to a barrier-free accessibility focused on inclusive public spaces, customer service, and community navigation. So those are sort of our foundational starting points for our accessibility strategic plan. If we can go to our next slide. We heard a little bit about this in the intro, but we know that the accessibility strategic plan will help to identify those gaps that may affect the delivery of that barrier-free environment. We will be assessing the current level of accessibility as well as recommendations for next steps, and that leads to our opportunities for improvement. We can go to our next slide. So that is really to provide a comprehensive roadmap to maintain and strengthen legislative compliance, and sometimes even going beyond that. And it will recommend strategies, timelines, measurable outcomes. And we intend to really work with the community's feedback, your feedback today, as well as staff to help advance accessibility across all of the services, facilities, and operations, really focused on that continuous improvement. If we can go to our next slide. So there's a variety of activities that we mentioned. The working session that we had with our Accessibility Advisory Committee today with yourselves at council, as well as some staff interviews and surveys and workshops that will take place over the coming months. And our public community survey, pardon me, our public community survey, which just launched and will remain open until August 7th. So now our focus of our discussion, if we can go to our next slide again. Perfect, thank you. We'll leave this up on the screen, but the intention of this is really just to be conversational, to hear from all members. But we want to hear about issues that you've experienced or have observed, or maybe your constituents have spoken to you about them as well. But both physical and attitudinal accessibility barriers, as well as priorities, accessible priorities that you think the town should focus on, and any ideas or considerations for the project team, both in terms of the development of the plan or our engagement and next steps. So while this is up on the screen, I apologize because I can't see the room. But if you can just introduce yourself and let us know your feedback focused on those issues, priorities, or ideas. Hopefully we can hear from everyone today within our next 50 minutes. And I will be taking notes as well as Emily throughout the process. Is there anyone that would like to start us off?
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. I do think it's, yeah, I like to keep the questions up there because I think it gets our brains thinking.
Yeah.
Council, is there anything that is screaming at you to report? Oh, sorry, I haven't got my little computer here set up, so I'm not seeing who's wanting what. Councillor Cairns?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. Thank you very much for this. I've been with the town, I think I sat on the accessibility 20 years ago when we first started with our clerk, Candace Twaits, and it was a big goal and a big ambition to get to 2025 to make sure we were accessible. We had all, positive thoughts that we could do it. I want to say, first of all, thank you to all the accessibility committees over the past several years for getting to where they are today. One of my issues is, and a question in regards to, and I'm going to use an example, we have a set of stairs that go down to a parkette. Basically, I don't think it's considered a parkette, but it's a trail kind of park. And I'm wondering if all, and this would be in general, if all areas would have to be accessible. So if the town puts in new stairs, does that mean we have to put in something that lifts people down that maybe can't do stairs? Or are there areas that, sometimes you just can't make it totally accessible for everyone? Some of the parks, playground equipment, half of it is accessible, but some of it isn't. But we do have and offer great accessibility games and toys and things for kids and adults as well. So I'm just wondering if we have something that, like a set of stairs, do we have to make it accessible with a special lift or ramp so that those people could get down to the beach area or the water area?
Yeah, it's a great question, and something our team also flagged when we were doing our audit last week, not just in terms of parks, but some of the heritage buildings and sort of figuring out what that balance is. So we are taking that into consideration. I don't have an answer for you today in terms of what that needs to look like for compliance, but we are mindful of it.
So under the Act, is there anything in the Act that says, do we know, like the Accessibilities Act, do we know if there's something?
Under the AODA compliance, there are guidelines, but again, those are minimums, and sometimes municipalities or organizations, will go above and beyond that. So what I need to do is make sure that I'm looking over that with our team to figure out what the baseline compliance is. And then we can assess what you would need to do further. But I don't think it would be including a lift if there are stairs. It would just be making sure that we're mindful and being able to provide navigation to what is accessible and making sure that there's communication about what isn't accessible.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Varney?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Our accessibility committee met last Thursday, and we had this discussion as well. And some of the points that were brought up were they felt there should be more parking for people with a disability. They said about the snow piles on corners. They talked about wheelchairs trying to get up onto a sidewalk so that they should be sloped. More of the sidewalk should be sloped at intersections. And a couple of things that have been online or have been on the books for a while is the railings at the Centennial Center. But we also pointed out that we do have a lot of heritage buildings that would absolutely be unable to get into some of them because of the steps which can't be removed. But I think we had a very interesting meeting on Thursday about these items that I've just mentioned. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you, Penny. And I was going to say, I know it's a bit duplicative for you, but if there's anything that you weren't able to speak about last week to add, we welcome the feedback and thank you for highlighting the recap, particularly the heritage buildings or stairs and railings with the parks that we heard just now, but also thank you for highlighting the accessible parking, because one of the things we do look at is if there's an accessible parking space, is there actually an accessible path from that parking spot to said location or facility, to make sure that it's not impacted. Are there any other issues?
Yeah, Councillor Jorgensen?
Yeah.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just looking, first of all, at the first discussion question, and if I read the question is, have I observed physical or attitudinal accessibility barriers? Of course I have. We have areas that are not physically accessible all over town, and we always will. So that's to me, it's a very broad question, which really goes into the second part. What should the priorities be? Because we're never going to be fully accessible because, first of all, there's a huge range of what accessibility is. We tend to think a lot of wheelchairs, but wheelchair access. But of course, we have an older population where just a hill makes something inaccessible for someone who can't maneuver that. So we're always going to have these physical barriers. To me, it's a question of how do we try and eliminate as many as we can for as many people as we can. So to me, the second item is really more of an issue because we're never going to get rid of physical barriers, especially, if we look at the municipality at large, the rural areas, there's huge accessibility. We have hiking trails. They're never going to be accessible, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So to me, the priorities.
You're absolutely right.
Priorities are what we need to focus on, quite frankly. So that's just my 2 cents there.
I appreciate that. Can you speak a little bit to what you think the priority should be?
Thanks. In terms of, the question I have, I guess, is are we just talking about what's under the auspices of the town? Or are we talking about private buildings as well?
Just the town.
Just the town, okay. Because
Yeah.
certainly our priorities we need to look at, as I think we already are, accessibility of all the town facilities, in terms of physical access, and we've got hearing access available in this room as an example. But the town offices obviously are a priority, or town facilities are a priority, and I think we're already doing quite a bit in that regard. Moving on to our other beaches and whatnot, I think we've identified that we're moving in that direction as well. But again, I don't think we're ever going to be able to cover everything off, but I think of some of what we've been doing already, the priorities that we have identified by working in those areas have been effective and will continue to be.
I appreciate that, and certainly agree, and helpful to hear the focus of the facilities first, and maybe parks and beaches afterwards. If there's anything else that you wanted to add in terms of attitudinal accessibility as well, and that comes from, the the communication and emotional connection that folks might experience at those facilities or at those parks. Because you're right, it's not just about the physical accessibility. That's definitely one component of it, but sometimes there are invisible disabilities. And even just the welcoming aspect of how people are received and supported when they do have any challenges.
Okay, I'm gonna, Councilor Morphy, you had your light on earlier. Did you mean to turn it off, or? Go ahead.
Your Worship, thank you. Through you, I was going to ask about the role of the businesses and storefronts and what influence we would have or impact on them. And then you said it was just the town property, so I turned my light off. Thank you.
Oh, I see. It's a really important component because obviously there is interconnected aspects to it. But for the purposes of the accessibility strategic plan, it would be what the town can focus on that's within its purview of roles and responsibilities. However, and I'm hearing that it is important for the businesses as well. So we can take that into consideration just in terms of recommendations and next steps. It could be, from an advocacy or communication perspective that the town has that can be provided to businesses so that they are also mindful of some of those, physical gaps or entrances. I think last week we did hear as well from the AAC that sometimes businesses have a light at the front to support access to their business in an accessible way, but sometimes that's not functioning. So they might have the light or a technology that can help support it, but it's not always active or on, which means it's not actually being used. And I think someone was actually suggesting, there might be a walkabout that can be done with town staff to support some of that understanding in terms of what's actually being used and where the benefits are.
Okay, Councilor Varney.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for that point that you just mentioned, because that was brought up at the meeting about automatic door openers that aren't connected. And it would be very easy for someone to just say to the owner, people aren't able to get in because your automatic door is not working. And also the point about doing a walkabout, we did discuss that about maybe with somebody from infrastructure, perhaps sitting in at our meetings on a regular, like not the same person and not anyone in particular, but just sitting in and listening to what we're discussing and where we find that there is some weakness in certain areas, so that they're aware of it, and it then is carried to their committee or to their area of expertise, because it was felt that the accessibility committee is not heard very much. And I think that we were all discussing that we need to be heard more. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Councillor.
I'm going to go over to Councillor Hunter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, when you said attitudinal accessibility, it sort of sparked something, and I was thinking sometimes like grocery stores would do like a sensory sensitive time of day where, somebody who doesn't like the bright lights or the loud noises. Is that an example of what you're talking about? And if it is, I think we could probably focus a little bit more on that with some of our events that we do in town. because they can be quite loud and kind of crazy. So just having some of that time for kids to come and also experience that.
Yeah. I would say that's a little bit more related to the physical accessibility, just in terms of changing physical elements to help with sensory components. But it is a very big, important one, and something that we can consider for facilities. For instance, sometimes theaters have different show times that might have one specific one that is more sensory receptive, and then it will be advertised in that way where, you know, the lights and sounds are different than, you know, not at the maximum that they typically are. So that's something that we can definitely look into if that is a priority. The attitudinal one is more it's more related to how people are received and sort of like staff attitudes, even when visitors or residents are coming in and needing support, or needing even help getting around. If you think of it as sort of that welcoming aspect, even accessibility aside, but how well you're received when someone is looking for help. That's more, I would say, related to the attitudinal one, especially because sometimes people will make judgments about certain folks with different abilities, which can also be not well received for the person experiencing them.
Perfect. Okay, thank you for that explanation.
Okay, before I go back to a couple people who have given comments already, did anybody who hadn't spoken want to offer anything? Okay, I'm just going to give my 2 cents worth. Just following the attitudinal accessibility barriers, I guess that would be maybe if you're asking, you know, on a form, you know, we ask people fill out a form for renting our facilities or things like that, even just asking on that form, hey, do you need any assistance? Do you require any further assistance from staff for a certain reason? Is that sort of the angle that you're suggesting? Or, you know, if they're coming in for an appointment with staff, they say, well, do you need help to get into the building? Or do you need help unloading your car? Is that sort of what you're suggesting as far as attitudinal? So rather than them having to ask, we offer.
It can definitely be connected to that, and the suggestion even on the form in terms of having like, do you require any accessible accommodations, is a great point, either for facility forms, or it could branch to various other evaluation surveys or anything like that. But yes, it is the proactive aspect of are there any accommodations that someone needs that the town might be able to help support.
Great. And then I'm going to go back to Councillor Jorgensen.
Thank you. Something I just thought of in terms of the question about what our priorities should be is frankly, I'm probably not the one to ask. So to me, we should be making sure, a priority should be that we're making sure that people can report the issues they run into and have a feedback loop, because I personally don't run into a lot of accessibility problems. And I may not even be aware of them. So at the same time, I think we need to make sure we have data, because all too often we're talking and it's anecdotal evidence about this or that, but is it a widespread problem? Is it, something that was just a single individual has a problem with? So having we do have our report a problem page on the website, but I think we could look at, report an accessibility problem and have a good feedback loop there. And then at the same time accumulate, if we get 25 comments about this problem, then maybe maybe it should be a priority. So maybe the priority should be putting in place the mechanism to capture that stuff.
I greatly appreciate that, and happy to hear, because one part of our process is to be able to ask you, but also ask the public and ask staff, and aggregate all of that feedback together to inform our next steps and recommendations, and then to continue that work with staff again based on the feedback that we received, so that they can really find ownership in the delivery of the plan. And the feedback loop is something the AAC highlighted last week as well, just in terms of that communication and transparency. So I appreciate it being highlighted here as well. Hopefully it will also translate to what we're hearing through our community survey. And we will highlight what we heard today and previously at the AAC, and as well as the community survey and staff survey when we do our workshop with staff, to then really dig into the details of it with them in terms of the vision and mission, and making sure that those set priorities are informed by what we're hearing.
Okay, Councillor Cairns?
Thank you, Worship, and again through you. I just wondered about our building code. I mean, this would also under priorities. I mean, the accessibility priorities in the town. I know that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but is it not through the building code that if someone comes in and wants to do a renovation to their building, like there is one property on the main street that had to move their washrooms upstairs to the main floor, make them accessible, and add an accessibility washroom to it. So I just wondered if during the building code process, if they were renovating and they came for permits, then through our department, would we not be requiring them to bring their building up to the best they can of standards to, washrooms, proper access, door openers, any of the renovations that might happen? Is that something that that we do now? I don't know if...
I think that's more of a question for the chief building inspector. I'm not sure, Zoe, if you want to tackle that?
So I can't speak to what is currently done now yet, but I will say that we are doing our audit, which required some of our staff to be on site and physically go around the facilities and parks. But that will also be coupled with speaking to staff, particularly I think the inspector that you mentioned, in terms of the town's facilities, but we're not doing that review of businesses. So I'm not too sure about the permitting process, but I know usually through infrastructure, they would be doing their permits based on the current building codes, and those would be up to AODA compliance standards.
Thank you.
Okay, so Councillor Varney?
Thank you through you, Madam Mayor. Sorry that I keep jumping in, but I do want to just report back from what Councillor Jorgensen said, that is the committee has put out a survey that will be online, but it's also on paper. And we do put those out at the farmer's market so that people can fill in. And we did last year do this. And one of the complaints at the farmer's market last year was the fact that wheelchairs along the pathway, and it was reported to our infrastructure, and the very next day the gravel went down. So it does happen. The results do come along. So for infrastructure, that was appreciated very much, and it was commented on that Director Stacey got onto it right away. So yeah, so that was just to your point.
I appreciate that, Councillor. And I will say that is the most important part about hearing challenges. We, through all of these processes, and actually every single project that I'm working on, we try and reach consensus where we can, but that really is about hearing what the issues and challenges are so that they can be addressed. It's one thing if you're hearing continuous issues and challenges and nothing happens with it. And that speaks to, I can't remember who was speaking earlier, Councillor Jorgensen, maybe it was you, just in terms of the priorities that people share. And if we are hearing, repeated concerns, then, beginning to action that. And that's what we want to continue to do. So thank you, Councillor, for sharing that great example of, hearing a challenge one day and having it actioned the next day, because that's the best case scenario. But we also know that it is at capacity or at the town's capacity. So we want to have a good understanding of if there's a lot of issues or a lot of challenges, what those priorities will be, so that we can create that roadmap to say, everything might not be solved tomorrow, but we have a plan to get us to the results that we're looking for.
Okay. Well, I think it's interesting to hear, from people. Councillor Jorgensen mentioned a wheelchair. My mom's in a wheelchair, so I understand those challenges a lot. Tried to take her for ice cream once across town, and not easy, I can tell you. But I think sometimes it's the challenges that we don't know about, right? Like it is something that, is obvious. Some of these physical challenges may seem obvious, but I think it's a lot of the times the ones that we don't know about, the challenges that some people have. So I think that should be a priority, is to hear from those people who we don't often hear from. So anyway, that would be something that I would want to add, is that not everybody is identifiable from their appearance.
Yes.
So I think that's pretty important. You can't judge a book by its cover. So,
Yeah.
So I just wanted to add that it's not always obvious that somebody may have some type of impairment to how they can enjoy things. So,
Yeah. Thank you so much for raising that, particularly because we do know that a lot of these plans and planning work that we're doing is for physical and invisible disabilities. And someone once said to me very profoundly that, it's not just seniors that we're looking at in terms of those who are experiencing challenges, but everybody is only one accident away from a potential disability. And when you put that in context or put that in your thinking, it really is to think about, you might not have experienced it, but, thinking empathetically about somebody else's challenge, or even that you might not know that the person next to you has a disability, because it isn't a physical one that you can see. So it's all those things and great things that we need to take into consideration, and just making sure that the town is thinking about them so that we can plan accordingly.
great. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to add? I would suggest that we do have this list of questions, and it might be not a bad idea to let them percolate. And if anybody has anything burning they would like to send off, that would be something we could do.
Yeah, absolutely. Kayla, if you can also go to our next slide. It just has a QR code for the current community survey that is up. Councillor Varney, I think, already highlighted that there will be paper copies, and when you do go to the survey page, there is a phone number that is also available if anybody wants to fill out the survey over the phone. We spoke with Jonathan at the town last week after our AAC meeting, and we'll connect with him again just in terms of what that communication through comms will be like. But if you do have a smartphone, you are able to scan this QR code. Hopefully it's up on your big screen, and it will lead you to the public survey. So I encourage you to share it, but it is also a great format if you have any further thoughts after this and you just want to add it in. Everything will come to Laura and our team so that we can aggregate all the feedback collectively to inform our next steps.
Okay, well, thank you. Am I wrapping it up, or other than just saying thank you, Emily and Zoe, for joining us today? And thanks for the feedback, council, and I will, I'm sure, be hearing from you again.
Yes, thank you so much. I think the next time you'll hear from Jonathan at the end of the process when we have our draft plan, and that will be towards the end of the year.
Okay, that's great. Well, thanks again for your time, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you. It was nice to meet you all virtually. Have a good one.
Okay, so council, that concludes this working session, and we will meet back in 19 minutes. Okay, welcome back, everyone. We did have a closed session earlier. There will be something coming out to the council agenda. We also had a working session. If you would like, you're welcome to go back and rewatch that. It was riveting. I would encourage you to do the accessibility survey. So with that, I will ask if Councillor Jorgensen would deliver the land acknowledgement statement, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. We would like to begin today's meeting by acknowledging the First Peoples who, for thousands of years before us, were and are still the keepers and caretakers of this land where we now live and work, and in particular, the Chippewas of Rama, Watamohawk First Nations, and the Moon River Métis. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect with all First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people. We recognize all the generations of Indigenous people and their historic connection to this place, and we are grateful for the opportunity to gather here at this time.
Okay, so the next portion of our meeting is deputations, and I am going to, I'll just read a bit first. I'm pleased to say a few words about our 2026 Gravenhurst High School bursary recipient. But first, some background about our bursary program. Each year, the town of Gravenhurst provides $2,000 to a graduating Gravenhurst High School student. The purpose of this bursary is to help offset the cost of post-secondary education, which we all know can be quite onerous. The town is pleased to play a role in helping young people achieve their academic dreams. Earlier this year, we put out the call for GHS students to apply for this year's bursary. Applications were due May 29th. A council working group then reviewed the submissions and selected this year's recipient. So, on behalf of council, I am happy to announce that this year's GHS bursary goes to Noah Rossum. So I will ask Noah to please take his place at the podium.
Hi.
Noah is no stranger here at the town of Gravenhurst. That's because he did his co-op with our Economic Development Division, working closely with manager Amy Taylor and her team, some of which are here to celebrate with Noah. Through his time with us, Noah supported the local business community and various events, including the 125th anniversary celebration for the Gravenhurst Opera House. In recent years, Noah has also done some volunteer work in the community, including stints with Muskoka Marathon, Gravenhurst YMCA, and the Relay for Life. Currently, Noah is working for the Gravenhurst Chamber of Commerce for the summer, and it has been terrific to see him thrive with that organization. And I'll let him tell you his title in just a moment. I am delighted to share that in the fall, Noah is attending Fanshawe College for the Urban Planning and GIS program, and we wish him all the best with his studies. I think it's clear that Noah is a bright and hardworking young man, and we look forward to hearing about your future accomplishments. On behalf of council, I congratulate you, Noah, on receiving this year's GHS bursary, and thanks for coming to see us today.
Thank you.
Oh, no, Noah, you're not off the hook so quickly. I would love just to get him a plug for the Gravenhurst, your new role with the Gravenhurst Chamber for the summer, and just tell us what it is that you're doing and how we can follow you.
Okay, so I'm the Chief Experience Officer of Experience Gravenhurst at the Chamber of Commerce, so the CEO. Pretty much what I do is I go to businesses and shoot content with them and make sure they're known in the community for people to come and visit. So you might have seen some of my videos, just short and sweet, from the heart, getting out around, and some of what I do.
That's great. Well, it's awesome. And we can follow you through the Gravenhurst Chamber of Commerce.
Experience Gravenhurst
Oh,
on Instagram.
Experience Gravenhurst. Well,
Yeah.
thanks for that. I'm
Yeah.
sure you'll get some follows out of this.
Hopefully, yeah.
Okay, well, that's wonderful.
Thank you.
And and best of luck. And thanks for coming today.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, so more good news. I think I can speak for all of us around the table, as this is one of our favorite parts of the job, is when we get to recognize the accomplishments of our staff and their hard work and seeing them grow professionally. So today we celebrate the accomplishment of our Records and Information Coordinator, Ali Reinhardt. Ali has recently completed the municipal administrative program offered by the Association of Municipal Clerks and Treasurers of Ontario. The MAP program consists of multiple educational units that are focused on providing students with knowledge and skills that are essential to working in municipal organizations. The four-part program consisted of units on local government, administrative structure, financial management, and municipal management. Ali has successfully completed the requirements of the course, including obtains the skills to navigate through various municipal structures, understand the relationships between statutory responsibilities with other levels of government, adapt to change in the ever-evolving municipal climate, and provide enhanced research and communications for various audiences, including council, government bodies, and internal and external stakeholders. We would like to congratulate Ali today on being committed to continued education and enhancing her own personal skill set to benefit her career and her organization. So, council, on behalf of staff and ourselves, I'd like to congratulate Ali and give her a round of applause.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Well, I won't put you on the spot. And yeah, thanks for joining us. And we'll see you around the office. Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so next on the agenda is the consent agenda, and it is moved by Councillor Jorgensen, second by Councillor Strength. Be it resolved, the following consent agenda items be approved. Correspondence, K. Moyer, Lookout Park Stairs petition. Correspondence, S. Kelly, RE Remembering the Site of Canada's First Sanatorium. Correspondence, County of Peterborough, RE Accuracy of the Municipal Voters List, and minutes, Gravenhurst Public Library Board, May 14th, 2026. Okay, council, anything that needs to go into new business? Councillor Varney?
Yes, I'd like to pull number 2.
Can you push your button again?
Okay,
Yes, through you, I'd like to pull number 2. Thank
Okay.
you.
Councillor Cairns?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, I'd like to pull item number 1, Lookout Park Stairs petition.
Okay, anybody else? Councillor Jorgensen? Oh,
Thanks. I'd like to pull the third item for discussion, please.
okay, anybody want to talk about the library? Okay, so we'll put those on new business at the end of our regular business. So stay tuned for those, and I will ask for a vote on the minutes for the Gravenhurst Library Board. And that carries. Thank you. Okay, so the next order of business is, oh. Okay, Counselor Jorgensen?
Just give me a second. Can you turn your camera off?
We're good? Thank you. I entered and signed in, please, yes. Do we have the motion? Okay, so I have a motion moved by Mayor Lorenz and seconded by Councillor Strength. Whereas Gravenhurst has experienced an increased use of e-bikes and e-scooters on municipal transportation networks, and whereas while the Minister of Transportation provides guidance on e-bike travel, there is no formal provincial-wide ban that limits the use of these types of transportation on roads and sidewalks. Therefore, be it resolved that administration be directed to review and report back on best practices for municipal regulation of e-bikes and e-scooters as applicable. And finally, that the report includes recommendations for a public outreach program regarding the safe use of e-bikes and e-scooters for pedestrians, motor vehicles, and riders. And Your Worship, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Jorgensen, for reading that resolution. I think that we've all seen the uptake of these electric vehicles. I do want to start off by saying this is not the fun police. I think that they are a good way to get around. I think they're an economical solution for a lot of people. I think that this is not about regulation and saying whether we like them or we don't like them. I think that we would all just be better off knowing, the council and the public would all be better off knowing what the regulations are in Gravenhurst, where they can be ridden, and that obviously it's all about safety. So not so much about, regulating. I don't know how many people are pedestrians, and we just had an accessibility meeting here to talk about accessibility. Well, when there's a kid, 14 years old coming at you at 20 kilometers an hour on the sidewalk, on one of these e-scooters, it certainly can be a little unnerving, to say the least, if you have any sort of difficulty walking, or this is not to limit rascals. We all know these people use accessibility scooters, and certainly not that. I think we would benefit as a community to understand more about where they are used, how they're used, and where they can be used in the municipality. So with that, I hope we are all open to learning more information. And I will note also, if you have been paying attention, there has been some serious consideration coming from the two biggest children's hospitals about crashes and the uptake on injuries on these. So I think, again, this is not to, we're not the fun police. I just think we would benefit from knowing more.
Did you want to speak to it, Councillor Strength? Nothing further to add to that? Anyone else would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Cairns. Somebody has to bring you in there.
Thank you, and through you. I just, I think it's a great idea because it is quite dangerous when they're coming at you quite quickly, and it is dangerous. But there's the odd sign here and there, but I think that maybe when we look at redoing some of our signage and things like that, that we let them know that maybe there's an alternate route, say going down First Street or kind of avoiding the downtown. Especially in the summertime, it's so busy here. And, cars are opening their doors on the main street, and people are trying to pass, and they're not in their lane properly. And I'm just worried that, those who are on a scooter, or if we, when we find out, if, we're telling them they need to go to the street, how dangerous it is. And Mayor Lorenz brought up the fact that, you know, the hospitals are letting us know that there's some serious things happening to people on them. And it's not just the youth. I mean, I see adults flying on them all the time. So I just hope that, you know, when we get the staff recommendations or when we get the information back from whoever it may be coming from, that we learn a little bit more about the safety part of it, but also as a town that we kind of think about it in the future, that we, you know, we'd love to have bike trails and you know, biking is huge in our town. And so I just want to make sure that we have a safe and alternate route for them and that we've got the proper signage that says, you know, a lot of them won't know that they can't ride on the sidewalks. And so I just got to, you know, reiterate that we try to make sure that we include, or they would include in their bringing back to us some alternative ways for these people to use those devices safely. So that'd just be my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to comment or question? Okay, seeing none, I guess. Oh, Councillor Morphy?
Thank you, through the chair. I just wanted to bring up the fact that we did just go to the conference and see the bicycle-friendly community, that you can apply for that, and they do have rules and ideas about e-bikes and e-scooters, that maybe that's the first step we might take. I don't want to change the motion. I'm going to vote in favor of the motion, but the staff might think about going there first before we have to reinvent the wheel for one municipality. Thank you.
Yeah, as an e-bike rider myself, you know, there's a wide range of e-bikes and what constitutes an e-bike, and you know, the throttle ones are quite a bit different from the ones you have to pedal to keep going. So there's a lot of confusion out there, what's allowed, what's not allowed, and I think this is part of what we're getting at here. Let's be clear so everyone is reading from the same page. Okay, so did you want to comment?
And again, I did just want to, you know, be in front of this. So often things change out in the world and people are not, and again, I think these are a really great way to get people around. I think they're, you know, they're environmentally friendly. There's really not anything you can be critical about except keeping people safe. So just wanted to reiterate that. So I do understand that they're a needed thing, and how do we come up with the solutions before the real problem starts? So thank you.
Thank you, and just, a comment, of course, that community safety is a big part of our strategic plan as well, so I think it fits in with that. Okay, anything further? We'll call for the vote. And I see that carries, and I'll pass the chair back.
Okay, so it is moved by Councillor Varney, second by Councillor Cairns. Whereas milkweed is the only plant where monarch butterflies will lay their eggs and is the exclusive food source for their caterpillars, and whereas the Ontario Ministry of Environment classifies the monarch butterfly as a special species of concern, therefore be it resolved that administration be directed to create a policy permitting the preservation of milkweed plants on both public and private property, and that the policy includes procedures for visual identity or tagging mechanisms such as yellow ribbons to be provided by the member of the community. And finally, that the policy identify that the milkweed plant's growth will not impact public safety, sight lines, or drainage, and preserve the integrity of community property standards. Okay? Councillor Varney?
You, Madam Mayor. This motion was inspired by wildflower gardens that have started appearing more and more in our community, and this includes the common milkweed and the swamp milkweed. The common milkweed itself is often seen in ditches along the rail tracks, on roadsides, and in fields, and has often been labeled a nuisance weed. The common milkweed, however, is unique in that the caterpillar of the monarch butterfly relies exclusively on this plant as a food source and therefore the survival of the species. Through the implementation of the tagging or the ribbon tying, which I'm suggesting, this motion puts forward that we can build on encouraging and highlighting the importance of biodiversity and the protection of native habitat. Climate change is playing an important part in the decline of biodiversity. We can build on what we started with No Mow May. Biodiversity within our landscaping, gardens, and town infrastructure was encouraged by the expert who spoke to that original motion. Bringing attention to this plant and showing support to our community gardeners through this motion will hopefully motivate and encourage people to protect, tag, and grow common milkweed on their properties. Hopefully, it will encourage community to spot and tag patches of common milkweed. The monarch butterfly famously makes the journey from Mexico, where it spends the winter in hibernation, through the United States and up into Canada, where it starts appearing in communities like Gravenhurst in the spring. It is the common milkweed that allows this journey, as this is the only plant that the caterpillar feeds on. By the time the butterflies start appearing in June here in Gravenhurst, it has taken nearly 4 generations in a season of monarchs to reach us. Once in Muskoka, 2 to 3 generations of monarch live, breed, and die during the spring and summer before their final migratory generation is born in late August and early September. The butterfly that leaves us here in Gravenhurst is called the super generation. This is a single generation that lives 7 to 8 months. It then returns to Mexico, spends the winter, and in the spring breeds and begins the summer generational cycle of monarchs that return eventually to Gravenhurst and beyond. This amazing life cycle occurs year after year. What threatens this incredibly is a symbol of our summer in our community is the loss of habitat and the removal of the common milkweed, which is why this motion is so important. The adult monarch, which is officially based as an endangered species, can live off of other plants. The monarch butterfly can, but the caterpillar from the monarch can only live off the milkweed plant. The preservation of the milkweed, both in wild and landscape spaces, whether private or town land, is so important from June into September. It will see us contribute in a simple but highly impactful way to helping that final super generation of monarch butterflies make their final journey back to Mexico every fall. The common milkweed has become a symbolic plant in its connection to the monarch butterfly and its caterpillar. More landscapers and gardeners are encouraging and planting this unique plant. I feel that to encourage biodiversity, we should be rethinking how we see these plants, not as weeds to be mowed or cut down, but to be encouraged alongside our community who are actively working to grow and protect them. They are highly visible indicators of ecosystem health. This population serves as an umbrella species, declining biodiversity driven by pesticides and herbicides and climate change. And as I point out in the motion, as long as they're not preventing problems with seeing around corners or obstructing drainage or covering signs or hydrants, they should be allowed to stay until the caterpillars have developed, and then they can be trimmed if necessary. I'm not asking for a bylaw, but I just feel that this program is actually in place in Huntsville, where people are tying ribbons around their milkweed to try and prevent the town from cutting the milkweed in their brushing times when they're doing the brushing. And so that's why I brought this motion forward, and I have a seconder from Sandy Cairns.
Okay. Counselor Cairns, did you have anything to add?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I think Councillor Varney has covered it quite well. It is quite exciting to see the butterflies flying around the milkweed. I don't know if you mentioned it, Councillor Varney, but one of the things that the butterfly does is it only lays its eggs on the milkweed and at the underside of the milkweed. So when you're walking down the road and you see some milkweed, and if you go down to Gull Lake Park and you're walking down the hill, there's always a big patch of milkweed on the right-hand side of the walk down, and it's usually covered in eggs. And so, but then once the eggs hatch, then they eat. And this year, I'm very fortunate, my milkweed came up, and I have monarch butterflies, and they're very, to a lot of people, they're very, I don't know what the word is. I think it's my dad coming back to visit me, you know, I mean, it has that also about it, but that hasn't got anything to do with this, but I'm just saying that, you know, it's very important for the biodiversity for if we want to have food to eat, we need the butterflies, so the bees and the butterflies, so thank you very much.
Counselor Hunter?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. I have no problem with the motion. I think it's great. I had a question where it says the policy includes procedures, and tagging mechanisms such as yellow ribbons to be provided by a member of the community. Is that like a third-party group or someone that you're thinking, or can you just elaborate on what that means? Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. No, this is by the private individual who has them, maybe on the boulevards, or obviously they're not going to get cut if it's on their private property, far enough in from the roads. But if they've got some that are on the boulevards, which seem to be more people are developing wildflower gardens on the boulevards, to put ribbons around themselves. This is no cost to the town. No, this is just for individuals.
Subsequent? Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. And so I guess how would somebody get in touch with that person, or would that be a part of the policy that the number, if somebody wanted to get those tags?
Through you, Madam Mayor. No, this is just up to the individual. And really, the idea is that I'm asking for the town to be more aware of these ribbons around the milkweed, and hopefully that the town would not cut them. I mean, they can be trimmed in September after the monarch has left and all the monarchs have gone south. But if they're cut, obviously, when the eggs are there, that's it for the monarch. And they tend to come back to the area that they left from, which they do have this, I don't know what it's called, but this DNA generational, they will come back to Gravenhurst, which is unbelievable. But maybe not back to my garden, but they will definitely come back to Gravenhurst. So, yeah, it's just an idea that I hope that the town will accept, that if the town employees see ribbons around these plants that are ugly, but they do a heck of a lot of good, especially with our environment the way it is right now. And climate change is definitely changing that. So it's just up to the individual.
Okay,
That's all.
perfect. Thank you.
Counselor Strength?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. Interesting that yesterday at district we were talking about unicorns, and today at town council we're talking about butterflies. I have talked about butterflies with both the District of Muskoka Director of Engineering and Public Works and the Director of the Environment Programs. And I've also talked to our Director of Infrastructure about butterflies. And I feel like everybody's aware of the milkweed. Muskoka Lakes, just as a matter of interest, Muskoka Lakes has a policy on milkweed and that I've been advised of through the director. I feel like we're doing this, that we're aware of the milkweed and protecting it and you know, ditching accordingly to save the plants. Are you putting this forward, Councillor Varney, because you've had a situation as well with a constituent that they're unhappy with what we're doing or how we're doing it?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, actually, that is the reason. And this particular area that was not blocking a stop sign or site or drainage, and the milkweed was cut. And so after speaking with infrastructure, it was one of the members there that suggested, who was from Huntsville, said that this program about tying ribbons around the milkweed, which then, I'm not blaming anybody, I'm just suggesting that perhaps there has to be the education to the workers in some way that they understand, maybe they don't understand how important the milkweed is to the monarch butterfly. Not to the butterflies, it's to the caterpillar. But yeah, that's why I brought it forward.
Councillor Jorgensen.
I was thinking about this as I was driving in today, you know, and thinking, I mean, of myself, I probably have more milkweed on my property than anyone, perhaps maybe Councillor Robinson has being rural as well, but I got lots of milkweed, so I'm, you know, and obviously know the importance of it. But I'm just looking at the practicality of, you know, as I drive in along Houses Rapids Road and Doe Lake Road, and we've already had our first cut, I think, that has gone through. And I'm trying to figure out the practicality, because there are, you know, milkweed doesn't grow just by itself. It grows in the midst of other things that can grow up very high and also perhaps cause, you know, anyway, you want to cut the entire side of certain areas to stop the, you know, woody vegetation and stuff from growing up too. So I'm just trying to figure out the practicality of how, okay, there are some milkweeds in this area, but there's also other stuff we do want to cut. So I can't see them getting off the tractor and going and trimming around the milkweed. So the other question I have, I guess, is you talk about on private property too, and but the motion, I think, says both public and private, and I'm wondering what I don't think the town has any jurisdiction over, you know, I mean, it's not it used to be a noxious weed, in fact, up until I don't know, the early 2000s when it was recognized, but you actually had a requirement to remove it at one point because it was under the noxious weeds in Ontario, but I think that's been for at least a decade not the case. But what would the role of the town be on private property with respect to milkweed, I guess was my question. And also, I guess, I don't know if Mr. Stacey wanted to talk about how roadside cutting in particular works at this point, or just leave it for, to see, you know, if you're going to do a report on this or something. But I'm just trying to figure out the practicality of, you know, they're coming along to cut. No, now we've got this area we don't want cut because there's milkweed there, where there might be other stuff that does need to be cut within that boundary.
Okay, so I actually am going to take a break here, and I'm going to ask the Director of Infrastructure, we're not going around and cutting down people's milkweed on their private property, first of all. And secondly, any urban brushing that we're doing is, in the professional opinion of our staff, is impeding sight lines and stop signs. Because I know this patch that we're talking about here because I live across the street from it. And I can tell you that that street has been getting busier and busier with the closure of Bay. And for me, yes, we want to maintain the butterflies, but public safety comes first. So I would just like to hear from the infrastructure director, what is the practice now? Like, we have a problem here we're trying to fix, but can you explain to me why that would have been cut?
Can you hear me now? Through your worship, you're correct. We don't make a habit of going on people's private property to cut roadside vegetation. The program is strictly for the edge of the road, probably the first 5 feet of the road edge. We've actually had to increase our program from once a year to now twice a year due to the hot weather we've been getting and the height of the vegetation that's been growing within. So we actually started that a couple of years ago, doing it twice a year, whereas before we did it once. The type of equipment we use is a large farm tractor with a flail mower that's hanging over the side of the machine that is of such length that it'll take from the edge of the asphalt to the bottom of the ditch line. We do not clear to the back of the ditch line. We leave that to its own devices. Depending really on what resource you're using to do your research, I think you can get pros and cons for both maintaining vegetation on edge of roads with milkweeds versus not doing it. What was your question there?
Well, I asked the question, it would have been staff's professional opinion that eventually that this would have been impeding the sight line or impeding traffic or the sign.
Through your worship, on the day of those milkweeds being cut down, staff were instructed to daylight signs. And what that means is to cut anything down that's a certain height that they feel could impede a regulatory sign moving forward. So they're trying to get ahead of that issue that may present itself that could cause an incident. So that's in a nutshell, that's what happened in this particular instance. And actually, we're also contemplating in our department, now that we're getting this new tractor and a blower unit for clearing of edges of roads, we're actually contemplating bringing a policy forward recommending that roadside gardens do not be permitted in our community because there's lots of objects that our blower could pick up and project, if you will, in an unsafe manner. So we'll be bringing a policy forward shortly, actually requesting that no roadside gardens be permitted.
So like a rock or something can get stuck, like go in the blower and become a projectile? Is that what you're suggesting?
Correct. Because what starts out as a garden, then you get, appurtenances to their lights, and we see these things start to get legs and grow. So we're trying to stop it at the initial stage. So that's more to come on that one. But regarding milkweed, it would be difficult for us to say we're not going to cut this area. I think our road geometrics have lots of winds and bends and hills and corners that it would not make sense to stop and not do certain areas. I think if council was to do something like this, I think we would be opening ourselves up to potential lawsuits, litigation. And I think we should allow the department to continue to do what it's doing, cutting the edge of the road and leaving the vegetation on the back of the ditch line, i.e. milkweeds and other stuff like that.
So just one more question. I mean, so it's only within 5 feet of the that we clear. So if it was 7 feet back, that wouldn't have been the problem here. Okay. So I'm going to go over to Mr. Lucas.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to pick up on a previous, I just wanted expectations to be clear here as far as what a policy means. In the event that council approved this motion, we're interpreting this to be an operational direction. as opposed to, I believe Councillor Jorgensen indicated, or insinuated there may be a future report or a future policy coming forward. The way that I interpret this is that this is an operational direction, like an operational small p policy, as opposed to something coming back operationally for council to play around with in terms of exactly how that would function. So just wanted expectations to be clear. If that's not what council wants at the end of the day, then adjustments may need to be made, but likely in the form of a report that would come back at a later time. But we're taking this as an operational policy initiative, which council can do with what it wishes.
Okay, so I'm going to go over to Councillor Cairns, and I will say we're going to stick to the Robert's rules two chance to talk. So I'll open the floor for you, Councillor Cairns, and then we'll go through the list again.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Appreciate that. So a couple of things. I'm going to go back a few years again. Been around for a while, but this came up with a garden on Sarah Street. Beautiful garden. Back one of our past employees of the town wanted to cut it down, and at the time, the neighbor that had this property fought very hard to keep it. It was beautiful, and it started a lot of great things in our community, including the Communities in Bloom the Daisy Awards judging, excuse me. The Daisy Award judging. There are many gardens that would have to be taken down now along the whole town. So what I would like to ask staff, and I think we've done this before, and I know that staff does it, they do training on noxious weeds still. You identify with your staff, you have a training session, used to, I'm sure you still do. But as you're cutting roadsides, say along Doe Lake Road, you would lift your blade or you wouldn't take down Japanese knotweed, because we all know that once it goes from here, then it spreads to here, and then it just keeps going. Also cowslip, and I can't remember the poisonous name, Randy, help me out. Giant hogweed is another one. You wouldn't mow that down because it's very, very dangerous. It's and I understood it to be that in the past practice, town has lifted their blades. They have marked. I've seen it on Doe Lake Road. It's been marked. I know there's an area on James Street of Japanese knotweed. There's another area of Japanese knotweed in Gull Lake Park. And the only thing to kill it basically is with a chemical. But if you mow it, you're just taking it from your blade to the next, to the next, to the next, and that's how we get the spread. So I'm just wondering if staff is still doing that along the roadsides, if they see the noxious weeds, any of them that they've been trained on, would they be lifting their blade or will they be cutting them? Because they used to lift the blade. And I just wondered if that could be done for milkweed as well, along just to save the butterflies.
Through your worship
Director?
to Councillor Cairns, all I can say at this point is staff do get trained on noxious weeds. They are able to identify what a Japanese knotweed is. They are professionals. They know how to deal with that when they come across it. I would say Japanese knotweed and giant hogweed are much more visible than a milkweed when it's in a cluster. So it's a lot easier to identify and allow us to pick up our blade before we move on. I'm not suggesting that's the case for milkweed, and I think milkweed, to be quite honest with you, is so rampant in our community that, if we want to take the stance that let's protect the milkweed on the edge of the road, that we shouldn't even bother doing roadside mowing, to be quite honest and open about it. But we need to maintain sight lines, to ensure that the road drains, for all the good things that we do it for. I just think it'd be a hard task, given the geometrics of our road, the hills, the corners and curves, that we would be able to comply with something like that. I know Huntsville does it. I know Lake of Bays do it. Not Lake of Bays, Muskoka Lakes. Their road networks are different than ours. They're not the same, so it's not an apples to apples comparison. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Varney, you can have another opportunity.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. This was an actual whippersnipper that came in and just took the milkweed and nothing else. And I know this particular garden, and it definitely was not blocking the stop sign, and it wasn't, there's no drainage, there was nothing, and that's why it was so upsetting to the person who looks after the garden. And neighbors have walked up this road and have commented on the fact that, why did they take the milkweed? Nothing other, there were daisies that were higher than the milkweed, and they were left. So that's why I brought this motion forward, and I'm disappointed in some of the comments, because I feel that, I think that environmentally, flower gardens are so important to our ecosystem, and I just feel that this is very unfortunate.
Oh, okay, thank you. I guess I would suggest that they were more, maybe a little more cautious in this situation and only took the tallest of it. But Councillor Jorgensen, and then I'll go to Councillor Hunter.
Thank you, Worship. I just want to pick up on something that Mr. Lucas said, that, you know, there wouldn't be a report coming forward. But I mean, I think I'm hearing, like, I wouldn't support putting forward an operational change unless I knew what the impacts of it were from that standpoint. And I'm kind of hearing it would be very difficult to manage this. And I'm thinking, you know, again, and especially in the rural area where you're going along and you're clearing the side of the road, it's very difficult to, you know, save the milkweed. You know, perhaps another approach to this is, you know, if we look at the properties the town does have where we could encourage, you know, milkweed growth in certain areas to make up for, you know, part of environmental, we see this in planning sometimes where, you know, where we know we're going to lose this, so we're going to do this to mitigate it. You know, let's do this instead, because we know we lose some milkweed to roadside mowing. Well, let's leave a patch in a park or something to make up for that is another way of looking at it. But you know, I'm not comfortable saying that this would be a good operational change, because I'm not really clear on whether it's doable or even something that we would want to encourage, about leaving these patches at the side of the road because obviously we're clearing the road for a certain reason without understanding what the implications were. So that's my 2 cents on it. I just want to comment too. I'm myself much more concerned about the invasive species, in particular Japanese knotweed, that I'm seeing everywhere. That, as Councillor Karen says, we know if you cut it, it comes back stronger, and if you're cutting it, you're spreading it. So we have to make sure that is well looked after, and not cut in our roadside cutting. But I'm trying to wrap my head around what it would look like to see these ribbons where there's other plants within that aren't going to get cut as a result. So I guess that's where I am on that.
Okay, so I'm going to go to, Director?
Thank you, Your Worship. And I please don't want to give the impression that, you know, infrastructure staff are heartless and cold and don't think this is a good thing. I mean, we clearly understand what the concern is here and what wants to be achieved at the end of the day. So why don't I leave you with this? We hear what you're saying to us. We hear the concern that you brought forward. My suggestion would be, why don't we identify a couple areas in town on our rural roadways where it wouldn't be an issue if the vegetation were to grow a little taller, and go from there? And that's kind of meeting the councillor kind of halfway on the motion, because there may be some straight stretches in the rural areas that may make sense. But for the most part, I get the road needs studies, and I know what it says. Our road geometrics are very demanding in our community, and for the most part in the rural areas, it needs to be cut down. But there may be a couple areas in the rural areas that it does make sense, and we would be happy to see if it becomes a problem issue in the future. So if that would appease council. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go to Counselor Hunter, and then I do see Counselor Morphy, and then we're going to, unless anybody else wants a first opportunity to speak, we're going to wrap this up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, I like that suggestion. I was just, I guess my comments were going to be that if Huntsville does have a policy and Muskoka Lakes also has a policy, then I don't see a reason why Gravenhurst couldn't come up with their own policy. But is it this? I don't know. It sort of sounds like the ones that were cut down were in front of a stop sign, so those would be cut down anyways, if that is the example. But I do think we should do everything we can to help to preserve, as long as it's done in a safe way. So I like your suggestion of, sort of meeting halfway and kind of seeing where we're going. Potentially a future policy and kind of seeing what that looks like. I don't know if we're there today, but those are just my comments.
Okay, Counselor Morphy?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, in the final paragraph, it says, the policy identified that the milkweeds plant's growth will not impact public safety, sight lines, drainage, and preserve the integrity of community property standards. So I think it carries on the way it's currently carrying on now. But, private individuals, if they wanted to tie a yellow ribbon around their milkweed to identify it and be proud of it, that's how I read the policy. I didn't read it this great big blades up, blades down, like you're allowed to do it, even if the milkweed's there, according to this policy. And just if you wanted to create awareness, I know it was brought to my attention when I was at the wharf that we've got a bunch growing in the wild gardens in the square there. So I'm happy to take your suggestion as well, but I didn't see any big change except for people could put a yellow ribbon around a milkweed plant.
I do see a bit of a difference though, because the milkweed, if staff believe that it is going to impede the safety, even if it has a yellow, but even if it has the yellow, I think what the problem is what we're talking about here is one specific situation, right? Whether that had a yellow ribbon on it or not, staff would have still felt that that milkweed needed to be removed. Is that the case here, Director? Okay. So even with this policy, that the situation that brought this policy to the table would still be the same. Okay, thank you. Okay, so Councillor Cairns, there was a question you didn't have answered. Okay. If you want to repeat the question.
So the question was in regards to all of the people who have boulevard gardens right now, and the policy is going to be coming forward. I'm just asking, maybe I'll differ my question just to say that you recognize those gardens, because when the judges are out there doing the Daisy Awards, I'm going to say 75% of them are on boulevards.
So
Their lawns. So I'm just asking.
that's not this policy, so I just don't want to wade into that. That's another.
He spoke of it,
Well,
so
he
I'm
spoke
just
of it, but I don't, we're not crafting that today, so I just want to stay on track of this. I think
I'll
that's
have
a
a discussion with you
it's a
after. Thank you very much.
premature. Thank you. Is there anybody who hasn't spoken twice who would like to speak again? And then we're going to wrap it up. Councillor Strang?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just a little confused. So how does what the director say going forward apply to the policy or apply to this motion? Is the motion necessary at this point? And do we just go with I'm pretty comfortable with what the director says. I'm just a little confused as to how we move forward.
Okay, so we can either A, defeat the motion, B, we can have the mover and seconder remove the motion, or, yeah, and then, sorry, Councillor Jorgensen? Well, yeah, what does happen if it's passed? Because as far as staff is this significant direction for you. So that, I guess what I would say is if somebody tags a milkweed that a staff person believes is impeding the roadway, with this yellow ribbon, it's still going to be removed within 5 feet of a stop sign or the end of the street. So the situation is, if it's within 5 feet of a stop sign, it's getting cut down. Is that right?
Correct. If staff believe those milkweeds are impeding a sign, impacting the road network, causing a dangerous situation, whether there was a ribbon on it or not, we would proceed to cut it down, and there'll be a bunch of cut ribbons all over the community. Again, maybe the best thing is to pull the motion, defer the motion, or pull it, take it off the table. Again, infrastructure understands the intent of the wish of some of the councillors in this room. We will try our best to identify locations where it makes sense, where we can say, hey, we could live with maintaining a healthy milkweed stock at this particular location. No need to put a ribbon around it. What I don't want to get into the habit of, what I'd be concerned with if we had a policy, is that we'd be constantly defending ourselves of why did we cut it down? And that's not the business we're in. So I would suggest the policy get pulled, the request get pulled. We go, infrastructure goes back to our teams. We talk about what we talked about today and see if we can find some locations in our community where this would make sense. And if you would like, we would even report back on that.
Okay. So do I have anybody who is willing to move to lift the motion from the table? Yep, doesn't have to be the mover or seconder. Councillor Strength, a seconder to remove the motion. Councillor Hunter. Go ahead, Mr. Lucas.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to, I guess, to directly talk about what the impact of the motion is, it's that any private member of the public could wrap a ribbon around milkweed on any public property, and unless it offends one of the items in the last recital, which includes public safety and a lot of the things that Director Stacey referred to, that would need to be preserved across the entire community. So it wouldn't be necessarily preserve all milkweed on all public property. It would be that was, so the impact of it depends on how many people are out there wrapping ribbon around milkweed across the community on public property. So I just wanted to clarify what the impact of the actual motion is. But as Director Stacey indicated earlier, a lot of what we deal with would offend the last recital in this motion, and regardless of whether it has a ribbon or not, would need to be cut for operational purposes.
Okay, so I have another motion. It's moved by Councillor Strength, second by Councillor Hunter. Be it resolved that the motion be withdrawn. Any questions or comments on the motion being withdrawn? Okay, so Councillor Cairns, do you have a question about the withdrawal?
Thank you, Worship. Yes, I do. Just a question in regards to the, if it's withdrawn, I don't know how to word this properly. I may have to, because you're asking me specifically, and what my question is about, letting the homeowner know so we can save those eggs, and people that do hatch the butterflies, there's terminology for it all, but anyways, those people could bring those leaves in and save them. So I'm just wondering if before they get cut down, would they identify or notify the owners so that they could try and save them and let the eggs hatch in captivity and then let them release them. So it's not actually on the motion, but it is a good question, and there's a lot of people that do save the eggs and raise the monarchs to be sure that they're let go. The city of Stratford is huge on that.
Okay, so I'm going to just go to Counselor Hunter because we're talking about the withdrawal. So Counselor Hunter, you want to speak to the withdrawal?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. Yeah, I just wanted to be clear that I believe in the importance of it. I'm not withdrawing it because I don't believe in the importance of it, but I do agree with Director Stacey, and he did say that he would be willing to give a report back at some point, and I would like to see that. But yeah, I just wanted to be clear that I'm not withdrawing it because I don't believe in the preservation of the milkweed, but I do think there's a little bit more work that needs to be done, and I think that we'll get there.
Okay, Counselor Jorgensen?
Thank you, Worship. Like Councillor Hunter, I understand the importance of the milkweed, but I also heard, as I said, and I got lots of milkweed, so I encourage it on my own property. But I did hear Director Stacey say that he's listened to the conversation and understands what the sentiments that have been expressed are, and is able to operationalize it as best as he can by speaking with his staff. So I think that's really the ultimate goal from the discussion, that we have the directors telling us that they'll look at modifying their procedures to try and preserve as much as they can.
Okay, anybody else want to speak to the withdrawal? Okay, so I'm going to call the question on the withdrawal. I had to count, that carries, yeah, thank you. Yes, we are going to take a break. We've been at this since 1:30. So, and the clerk has said 15, but I'll give you 14, 4:15. Please be back here. Okay. Great. Welcome back, everyone. We are now going to have a motion. Yes, thank you, Madam Clerk. Be it resolved that report number FIN 2026-11, RE 2025 audited consolidated financial statements be received for information, and that the following financial statements for the town of Gravenhurst with an unqualified opinion provided by Pahapa Hill and Associates Professional Corporation, the external auditors for the town of Gravenhurst, be received. 2025 Gravenhurst Consolidated Financial Statement, 2025 Gravenhurst Business Improvement Area Financial Statement, and 2025 Trust Fund Financial Statement. So I will throw it over to Mr. Campbell. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of council. Before we begin, I'd like to provide before we begin, our high-level overview of the financial statements. I'd like to again extend my sincere appreciation to Manager Trott, Manager Resilius, and the entire finance team for their outstanding work during the year-end close and audit process. The quality of their work reflects a strong commitment to sound financial management and ensuring that the town continues to uphold the highest standards of financial reporting. With those acknowledgements, I'd like to begin by providing a high-level snapshot of the town's overall financial position. So I'm pleased to report that the town has once again received an unqualified or clean audit opinion, which Carl will speak to some more, which is the highest level of assurance an auditor can provide. It confirms that the financial statements fairly represent the town's financial position and results of operations in accordance with the public sector accounting standards. So overall, the 2025 audited financial statements demonstrate that the town remains in a healthy and stable financial position. Now, I'll like to highlight some of the key financial results that contributed to the overall picture. So I'll start by looking at the revenue growth. So revenue increased compared to 2024, while expenditures also increased as expected to support ongoing service delivery and infrastructure needs. The town also reported a public sector accounting annual surplus of approximately $9.2 million. And just to highlight that the accounting surplus we're speaking about there, it's a non-cash accounting item, and it's largely contributed to driven by the contributed tangible assets of $4.5 million. So typically it's not really spendable cash. It's just largely attributed to the contributed tangible capital assets. The other highlight I'd like to speak to is the strong investment performance. So investment income continued to perform well during 2025, and that increased over prior year. The town also continued to benefit from its participation in the One Investment Program. And of course, we're seeing positive market performance from those investment products with the One Investment. The other highlight is the accumulated surplus. So again, the town accumulated surplus also increased during the year. And of course, the surplus is not really a bank account. The vast majority of it represents our investment in municipal infrastructure, including roads, bridges, and buildings, and so on. Also, the surplus also includes the reserve funds and also the annual public sector accounting surplus. But majority of the surplus is tied to the investment in municipal infrastructure services. The other positive highlight is that we continue to maintain a positive net financial assets, meaning our financial assets continue to exceed liabilities. So our liquid assets are much more than we owe, and that's a positive sign. So this remains one of the strongest indicators of long-term financial health and demonstrates that the town is not relying on debt to finance its day-to-day operations. So that's a very good sign that we're not in a net financial debt position, but we're in a net financial asset position, where short-term assets continue to basically exceed our liabilities. Another positive I want to highlight is the infrastructure investment. During 2025, we added 17 million in new tangible assets. And just to point out that the town invested substantially more in capital infrastructure than what was consumed of $7.8 million. So we invested 17 million and we consumed 7.8. So we basically replaced and expanded our infrastructure at a rate exceeding the pace at which our existing assets were being consumed, and that's also a positive sign. Another thing I want to highlight is the reserve and reserve funds. So you'll note that the reserve and reserve funds balances declined modestly during the year. So of course, while reserves levels remain healthy, this reinforces the importance of continuing to rebuild reserves over time to support future infrastructure renewal. And of course, consistent with Council's long-term financial sustainability, the 2025 operating results will also support additional contributions to key reserves, including the Community Reinvestment Reserve and the Tax Stabilization Reserve Fund, which will further strengthen the town's financial resilience and capacity to respond to future priorities. Looking ahead, we'll continue to focus on maintaining sustainable reserve and reserve fund balances, continuing long-term infrastructure renewal and replacement for the town's asset management plan. And of course, we continue prudent debt management and of course, continue to maximize investment returns within the town's investment policy. So that concludes my overview of the 2025 audited financial statements, and I'll now invite Carl Pahapil to present the independent auditor's report. And following Carl's presentation, we are pleased to answer any questions Council may have.
Okay, welcome, Carl. You're a very patient man. I think every year we always, we have something, hard hitting while you're waiting so patiently. So welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Worship. My firm is a licensed firm, licensed by the Association of Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario to practice public accounting in the province of Ontario. Accordingly, we have audited the consolidated financial statements of the Corporation of the Town of Gravenhurst, which comprises all of the various financial statements that Mr. Campbell referred to, including notes to the consolidated financial statements and details in respect of significant accounting policy. We conducted our audit in accordance with Canadian generally accepted auditing standards. We are independent of the municipality in accordance with ethical requirements that are relevant to our audit of the consolidated financial statements. Our objective is to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the consolidated financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error, and to issue an auditor's report that includes our opinion. As part of an audit, in accordance with Canadian generally accepted auditing standards, we exercise professional judgment, maintain professional skepticism throughout the audit. Our process is that we obtain an understanding of the internal control relevant to the audit in order to design audit procedures that are appropriate in the circumstances. We evaluate the appropriateness of accounting policies used and the reasonableness of accounting estimates related disclosures. We also evaluate the overall presentation, structure, and content of your consolidated financial statements, including the disclosures and whether the consolidated financial statements represent the underlying transactions and events in a manner that achieves fair presentation. Having done all of that, in our opinion, the accompanying consolidated financial statements present fairly, in all material respects, the consolidated financial position of the Corporation of the Town of Gravenhurst as of December 31st, 2025. On a lighter note, we would certainly like to thank Wayne and his two team members, Teresa and Rob, for their ongoing assistance in allowing the audit to be conducted very smoothly and effectively. Their questions are questions that we put forth are answered on a very timely basis with excellent thought and detail presented to us as we require. So again, I'd like to thank the team for that. And that is our independent auditor's report.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor, are there any questions Okay, I'm going to go over to Councillor Strength.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. Thank you, gentlemen, for a very positive report. My question is specifically about the BIA reserves. I beat you to the punch, Councillor Jorgensen. I know you like to talk about reserves, but here I am. Can perhaps Mr. Campbell, the BIA reserve fund is almost $80,000. I sort of thought that that was committed to pay off some of the obligations that the BIA, when it was functioning, had committed to. But is that, let's say that the BIA comes out of dormancy, is that what is to be had to start things off, is around $80,000?
For you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Strength, that's correct. Yes.
Okay. That's a happy customer. Councillor Jorgensen, I know you're waiting to push that button.
Oh, I'm not going to ask about reserves. I'm just going to ask about the debt here that from what I see, it looks like our next debt payment is due not till 2036. Is that correct? And if so, we're presumably, we'll have enough money to pay that at that time. And then the only remaining debt would be payable in 2041. Is that, am I reading this correctly, I guess?
Madam Mayor, to Councillor Jorgensen. So that's the remaining scheduled debt payments for the, I guess, for the remaining life of the debt.
Okay, so that's it in its entirety then.
Yes.
We've come a long way. I think we were 21 million back in when I remember coming on board. But I think we're planning on taking some on too, though, right, for the public works structure? Oh, okay. Okay, are there any more questions? Any more questions? None. Okay, well, I do want to thank you again for coming today, and I want to thank the, auditors, yes, and Wayne and his team for doing all the work and having a good, clean audit. It's very comforting to know that we're in good hands here, so thank you. Oh, and we must vote, so please vote. And that carries, thank you. And then we'll move right along to, moved by Councillor Strength, second by Councillor Varney. Be it resolved that report number INF 2026-11, RE St. George Anglican Church and Cemetery be received for information, and that administration be directed to proceed as per option 1 detailed within this report. Director Stacey.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll be brief, but certainly if council has any questions at the end, I'll be happy to answer to the best of my ability. But in essence, this report before you is to get direction from council or committee, whether or not the town should proceed to voluntarily accept a cemetery in our community in Coopers Falls that the Diocese of Toronto has approached the municipality to take over. We've been in dialogue now for a number of months. We're in a bit of a holding pattern, and they are awaiting our next steps. But in essence, there's a cemetery and church property on 1816 Coopers Falls Road that's been in existence since the early 1880s. And the church, as I understand it from the diocese, is no longer being utilized, and this just leaves the cemetery. The diocese mandate is churches in general. So back to my storyline. Where the church is no longer in service, the diocese are looking to dissolve themselves of the cemetery. There's really two options in front of you in the report. Really, we either voluntarily accept the cemetery and enter into negotiations of what that would look like with our solicitor, or we deny that we want to accept the cemetery and wait for a response from the diocese on next steps. The way the Funeral, Burial, and Cremations Act works is if an entity who operates a cemetery can no longer operate that cemetery for a variety of reasons, they could look to find another entity to take it on for them. And logically, it's 9 times out of 10, it's typically a municipality who would take on that responsibility. If they are financially unable to maintain the cemetery for whatever means, they could also deem it as abandoned and apply to a Superior Court of Justice. And the town could, falling out of that plea to a court, be directed through a court order to take it on. So I really feel between the two options that I've put in front of you, option one provides the most risk avoidance, if you will. So the option is here, we either take on the church or the cemetery or we don't. Costs right now are unknown of what it costs to maintain the site. I do know that the diocese right now are using a number of service providers to conduct burial services, to maintain the property, headstones and such. But given that it's only an acre in size, and looking at what our costs are for our cemeteries that we do maintain, one of the 13 that we do maintain, I estimate that it'll be an additional $25,000 likely to the operating budget year in year. This leaves the church building that's on site. It is an old building. We don't know the condition of the structure. We understand that it has had its issues, and that was perhaps one of the culminating reasons of why services are no longer being held there. So there is a chance that in taking this on, we will take on a dilapidated building, and we'll need to figure out what the future holds for that. But I think this is a good initial step to start dialogue with the diocese. I don't envision that the transition would occur overnight. There's lots of things that need to happen for this to ultimately become a town entity, if that's the will of this committee. But I'll leave it there, Your Worship, and if there's any questions, again, I'll be happy to answer them the best I can. Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions, Councillor Cairns?
Thank you, Worship, and through you. Just a quick question in regards to the 40 to 50 plots that still remain. And will we be if we do take it on, would we be receiving the registry to know who is in the cemetery, like all of the information and things like that that go along with it? I would imagine. I mean, it goes back to, you said, the late 1800s. So, and then how would they go through the same procedure as they do now for the cemeteries that we do own? If they, these 40 to 50 areas they may purchase eventually, would that go through, like the town would have to be responsible for that? So to me, it sounds like more than $25,000, because if we're going down there to do services or dig or whatever we have to do, that's going to cost money for, the travel and things like that, right? Am I right?
Got you on the run, Director.
Yeah, through Your Worship, a good question. And it's really, at this particular time, until I know the true costs of what it is to operate the facility, I don't know what the future would hold as far as the town continuing to offer those 40 or 50 plots that would be available. As it sits right now, we are in a transition mode where Legislative Services will be taking over that front end of the business, and the town would be responsible for the plots and stuff like that. But there is currently a third-party service that is doing that work right now, and it may make sense to continue with that third-party service, and that's part of the 25K that I'm talking about. So still more to come. It really depends on what the appetite is of this group of folks to take it on and understand a bit more of the business side of things.
Councillor Jorgensen?
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, we're dealing with something that I think we're kind of between a rock and a hard place regardless. For those of us who drive Coopers Falls Road all the time, oh, I guess that's me. I was actually surprised to learn that there's two churches there side by side, and they're actually in Gravenhurst. I never really thought of it. Because where the line is down there it's sometimes hard to know if you're in Romero or you're in Gravenhurst all the way along that road. But I'd just like to say that, I think this is probably making the best of a bad situation to go with the recommended solution. And I'm sure there's lots of families in my area that have people in the cemetery, and they'd be happy that the town was taking this on. So on behalf of those families, I think it's the right thing to do.
Councillor Varney?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. I know in Kilworthy, the cemetery out there, the little United Church was taken down because it wasn't being used, and I think there were problems. So is that something that you see, if we do take it on, that you would actually remove the church?
Through your worship to Councillor Varney, really at this stage, Councillor, I think it's too early to make those calls. As part of the transition, we will be looking for building condition reports, property boundaries, plot records, all that good stuff that comes with a care and maintenance fund. What does that look like? Until we truly understand what all those things look like, then we don't have all the answers just yet. Again, this is just the initial step. Are we interested? And if we are, then administration will respond that way, and we'll work together on what a transition plan would look like.
I have a quick question. Does anybody else have a question? Okay, my question is, this third party, this monument, third party who's handling the burials now, or the selling of the plots, is that right? Is that what's happening? And my question is, can they collect the money and then order us to, do the work? Or is there going to be some sort of MOU that they can do it, but they charge somebody $3,000, they're going to pay us to do our work, right? Is that the way it goes?
Through your worship, it'll really be up to us. So again, if we take ownership of the lands and the proper cemetery proper, it would be up to us whether we want to continue with those third-party relationships. Right now, there's 3 of them in play that work together to manage that site. We would have, and understanding what does it cost to run this thing, it may make more sense to continue on with those using those 3 service providers or not. I don't have the answers at this particular point in time, but what I do have the answer for is I do think this option is the best option for the town in avoiding risk and having those open dialogues, because what I don't want is to get a letter from the court saying it's yours. And when you get that letter, and the interesting part of that is you don't necessarily get title to the land. The land may still remain in the diocese inventory, but you become responsible for the running of the business, if you will. And we actually have cemeteries in Gravenhurst here where we run the business, where we don't own the land, which I found interesting when I came across it.
Okay. Well, 50 plots doesn't seem like a lot, really. That's all that's left. So, okay. Does anybody else have anything to say? Okay, so I'll call the question. And that carries. Thank you. Okay, so that leads us to, it's moved by Counselor, is it Cairns? Seconded by Counselor Strength. Be it resolved that the correspondence from Kay Moyer regarding Lookout Park Stairs petition be received for information. Counselor Cairns?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I just wanted to highlight that there are a number of citizens in our community that are looking forward to seeing the stairs be put back in at the Lookout. And so I basically just wanted to ask a question in regards to how do we go forward? Because when it came up before, the recommendation was to wait to see what Starboard was going to do, but we still wanted this in my direction. I believe I moved or seconded the motion, was to make sure that, you know, we had it brought back forward in the conversation, but that didn't show in the resolution. So I just wondered if we are, if now is a good time to say, I'd like to see the 85,000 or 75,000, I believe it was to begin with, to be forwarded to budget at budget time. Do I make that now or do, I mean, the discussion, I'd like to hear other people's ideas. We talked about it today in the accessibility. Do we have to make it accessible? And we're going to find out the answers to that as well. So, but I really think that it's important. It's part of Gravenhurst. I'm not sure if everyone knows, but the walls that were built around there at Lookout were built, again, by the prisoners of war that were here. And so that is like basically a historical area, and it always has been. We've always been able to get down there, and now it is, you know, it's part of the trail system unofficially. But it is a beautiful area, and I just wanted to be sure that, you know, that as staff and if other councillors are in favor of it, I'd like to see that the, you know, the stairs do get put back in. I don't know if we can wait till we find out what the development process is going to be with the other entity. So I think I'd like to see it be put back in for the for our next budget, as I believe that was the direction at that time. So that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm just going to give a bit of history. So I had been reached out to by Ms. Moyer directly, and I did share with her, and I'll share the answer she received from me, and after consulting with staff, is that this will be addressed in 2027. So it would be the next council budget that approves this addition. And I told Karen that, and she understood that at the time. So I just wanted to let you know that the people who have reached out to the town, including Ms. Moyer, have been told that this is a 2027 decision, and that, you know, the information will be saved, and the council, the next council, can make a decision based on that. So it's not, I'm going to go to Mr. Lucas.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to clarify that may not necessarily mean that it's in the 2027 recommended budget. I think it's something that will either be in the recommended budget or be an item that we identify as not being in the budget because it was removed, not necessarily deferred to the following year. So staff took it as a removal, and I know there was conversation around some rationale as to why that was the case. But I think, to your point, Madam Mayor, the time to address it is during the budget, but I didn't want to give the expectation that the conversation around this table today meant that staff are putting it in there necessarily, just to clarify.
Okay, Councillor Strength.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you to either Mr. Lucas or Director Stacey. My understanding of that piece of property that the stairs led to is town-owned, but not designated parkland. So how does that factor into whether it's in or out of the budget? Because it's never been a part of Lookout Park.
it looks like the director's going to take that one.
Through your worship to Councillor Strength. I guess at this stage, I would say it would take you to an unopened road allowance. Not necessarily a piece of land that's been dedicated as a park, not necessarily a town asset down there for folks to view. So I would only be viewing it as a access to an unopened road allowance. How committee and council feel about that, we can discuss that at budget time.
Okay. I do remember when the stairs were taken out for safety reasons, that they weren't part of our infrastructure. Is that right? We didn't have that, not that we didn't know how they got there, but they weren't part of, our infrastructure plan.
Through your worship, you're absolutely correct. It wasn't an asset that was in our asset plan. It didn't have a life cycle. It didn't have a replacement date. It was purely something that existed.
So, great. Okay, does anybody else want to? I think we're all clear, and I think as people who sit around this table and are at, it's our responsibility to make sure people understand what is happened and what the solution is and when it will be addressed. I think it is upon all of us to correct people when they think that it's been dismissed, the idea has been dismissed. That's certainly not the case here. It's just the way things have unfolded and that they are very much on the radar. So I will, do I need a vote on that, Madam Clerk? Okay, so I'll have you vote on that portion of today's meeting. Oh, including me. That carries, thank you. Now, what was the next one? It's moved by Councillor Varney, second by Councillor Morphy. Be it resolved that the correspondence from S. Kelly, RE, remembering the site of Canada's first sanatorium be received for information, and that the correspondence be referred to Gravenhurst Municipal Heritage Committee for review and recommendation. Councillor Varney?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. I pulled this as I agree that this property does hold historical and cultural significance to the town, folk, present and past. I feel that this TB hospital, under the administration of Mayor Charles Mickle, should have some form of memorial. I asked Councillor Jorgensen, who sits on the Heritage Committee, what his thoughts were on this, and I know that the committee is inactive now until the new council is in place. However, I felt this should not get lost in the weeds, so to speak, and perhaps this could be sent to the committee for future discussion.
Okay. Councillor Jorgensen?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm happy to speak to this. I think, in fact, the Heritage Committee has recognized through in Ungerman Park, we have the Camp Calidore Trail with 10 basic stations that outline the history of both the sanatoriums. When I say both, the sanatoriums, of which there were 5, 2 of them on what we know as the Muskoka Center property, but all along that area, including the Fire College and the site of Ungerman Park, there were actually 5 sanatoriums, and the trail through that area, the very first screen that I'm looking at, it outlines all 5 of them, and I think it was chosen, the Heritage Committee chose to recognize it in that location because, of course, we don't have access to the Muskoka Center property itself. It's not to say that in the future, something else could go up there, but certainly, I'm going to say that the Heritage Committee is well aware of the history of the sanatoriums. And in fact, one of them in Gravenhurst was the first, so this was actually the one on that's on the Fire College property, was the first free tuberculosis hospital in the world was in Gravenhurst. So, like anything else, back in the day, you had to pay for care, but on the Fire College property, that Muskoka Free Hospital in 1902 was the first free one. So Heritage is on top of it already. We have recognized the significance of that property. If the opportunity, I'm sure, came up in the future to further recognize, get access somehow to recognize the center property itself. Of course, the other thing on that property as well is the little gazebo that it's actually a designated structure on that property already. And we do have another structure of interest on the Fire College property, which is the lovely hall there. But again, it's provincial property at this point, so we haven't designated it. But as I say, I think we have covered it off at this point. But if the opportunity came up again to do further, because the first sanatorium was actually on the Muskoka Center property. And the Council of the Day recognized that this was an opportunity to provide this service. So I think it would, the Heritage Committee of the Day would certainly look at doing something further on that. But I encourage you to go have a look at the Ungerman Trail there, because as I say, there's already 10 heritage plaques that we put up. We did that just before the Heritage Conference that we hosted. So that was a major initiative that year.
Okay, Councillor Cairns?
Thank you, Worship. And I was just going to mention about the gazebo that's located there that has been designated. And I just want to be sure that, that's always going to be protected, hopefully, with upcoming possibilities. So that was just why I had my light on, just to be sure that we still recognize that the gazebo, and I'm hoping that it's being taken care of, because I don't know how we would even check, because it's private and we can't get onto the property. So, but it is a big piece of history. My parents' next door neighbor was one of the residents in the had TB and was there and survived. And yeah, so just wanted to ask about the gazebo.
Oh, Councillor Jorgensen, are you going to be brief?
Thank you. Just the committee has recognized that first of all, the gazebo is designated under the Ontario Heritage Act, which of course the province, it's the province's act, and we know the province can change their tune anytime they like with regard to it. But we have already noticed that the gazebo is not being well taken care of, and I think a letter went out a long time ago about it. But that's something that the Heritage Committee, I think, needs to address, to just keep that in the minds of people, that this should be better maintained.
Okay, so we'll vote on that. I mean, it's just going to the Heritage Committee. The coordinator can put it in the file for the next term. That carries, thank you. Next was moved by Councillor Jorgensen, seconded by Councillor Strength. Oh, perfect. Be it resolved that the correspondence from the Corporation of County of Peterborough regarding the municipal voters list be received for information. Councillor Jorgensen, you want to speak to this?
Now it's read. Thank you, Your Worship, through you. I just pulled this because I think, sorry, talking too much. Surprise, surprise, right? Attending the various Lake Association meetings, it's come up that, you know, people are concerned of the accuracy of the voters list, and they may have been left with the impression that nothing is being done to remedy the seasonal residents getting on the list. And from my discussions with the clerk, that's not the case. So I thought I'd give the clerk an opportunity if she could speak to what is happening so that we can tell people that work is underway to improve the list for the seasonal residents.
Okay, so you want the, you would like the clerk to, like, explain from her point of view what's going on with the voters list? Okay, Madam Clerk?
Sure. The motion from Peterborough talks about a change of ownership from the voters list from MPAC to Elections Ontario. So what we're in now is the same sort of scenario we've been in with previous elections, just MPAC no longer leading the preliminary list of electors on Elections Ontario are. So right now they're working on what's called the preliminary list of electors. It's not the voters list. The voters list isn't the voters list until it's transferred to all 440 municipalities for September 1st. So electors, seasonal tenants, regular owners, spouses of owners, can check with Elections Ontario, their site, if they're on the list. And if they're not, there's opportunities to add them. And after the voters list is transferred from the preliminary list of electors to municipalities, municipalities then take on the role, and people can be added up until Election Day at 7:59 on Election Day. And I can tell you in 2022, I was adding someone at 7:59, and they got their ballot to vote in time for the 8 o'clock close. So I know there is a lot of dialogue going on about the preliminary list of electors. So it's not too different than it has been in the past, other than the owner is currently with Elections Ontario. But if you're not on the list and you are an eligible elector, you haven't lost your opportunity. And you can still get added. Was there any other specific questions or anything else that you wanted me to highlight specifically?
Councillor Jorgensen?
Thank you. Yeah, some people are saying when they go to check their name, they're not on the list. But my understanding from our discussion was that there was actually Elections Ontario is working to improve that before it gets handed over to the municipality, right?
Okay, so your question is, what is Elections Ontario doing now? Okay. So Elections Ontario are reviewing their various data sources, which includes MPAC data, which previously had duplicate electors, if you will, because if you own multiple properties, and you could be listed as a duplicate. So they have committed to the main message I saw come out through was the Federation of Ontario Cottage Livers Association, their commitment to working throughout July and prior to the delivery of the PLE for August 15th to municipalities or voter accounts in the Elections Ontario throughout the month of July. So the work that Elections Ontario has promised is happening. But I want to caution people that there's a lot of reasons that an elector may not see themselves on the voters list, either through Elections Ontario or when it's within the town's possession. But that doesn't mean your opportunity is lost. There is like I said, registration available at all times. We do online registration. It's not a automatic process. It is checked by a human. Myself and my deputy clerk usually lead that portion during the election. So that is what Elections Ontario have committed to do and have communicated that to the cottage associations and the lake associations and the municipal clerks across Ontario, that they have committed to that, and the clerks have seen valuable action and impacts to our preliminary list of electors as it's growing. The voters list is a live document, just like federal and provincial voters list are. If you weren't on a federal list and you go to your voting station, you are eligible to register there, provided you have the required documentation. And this is just sort of the flow of a election cycle. But I do recommend everyone, if you own multiple properties or if you're an eligible elector in multiple properties, you don't see your name on the list, call Elections Ontario. Sometimes the online forms are a little bit challenging to deal with or to work through because you need to include the exact property as listed with Elections Ontario, the proper address, and your proper name. So if you have well, Councillor Jorgensen, you being one of them, if you have a shorter name or more informal name versus your formal, if your property has a informal name. So, for example, there's no Taylor Island as the formal address. Taylor Island is the informal name, but that proper address has something different. Easiest to check with your roll number, but there's lots of reasons like this that someone may not be on the voters list, and those people are having troubles finding themselves, and unfortunately it does seem to be our seasonal non-resident electors. But they have not lost the opportunity, and anyone who's eligible, I would like you to be registered, get your voter identification letter, and of course, vote. Hopefully that answers that particular question.
Councillor Hunter?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, at some of the Lake Association meetings, a few people have mentioned that they think they need their marriage license to be able to put their spouse, if their spouse is not on the list. Is that correct, that they would need to somehow bring that to Town Hall to get on the list? Can you just confirm that?
So voter registration with Elections Ontario, if you're identifying yourself as the spouse of a property, they may be requesting proof that you're the spouse of the property owner or the tenant. So it all, the identification that's required really depends on how you're entering yourself as it. And I can't speak to all the details that Elections Ontario are requesting. After September 1st, when it's the Town of Gravenhurst voters list, the Municipal Election Act come in place, and there's a very long statutory list of eligible documentation required to add yourself to a voters list. What's important is that the name and the address that you're trying to register to are the same. So if, for example, your driver's license isn't an applicable piece of ID, if the driver's license you sent to me has your Mississauga address that doesn't align with the property you're in. So if the spouse doesn't have any identification of their name and the address, so they're identifying themselves as the spouse, then the marriage certificate might be that form of applicable ID. If they're an owner and they're proving their owner status, I wouldn't need the marriage license. So it really, there's a lot of different factors in how, and that's how you're applying. So if they're a registered owner through me, I wouldn't need I wouldn't need the marriage license. If they're registering as the spouse of an owner and they're not an owner, that may be the applicable ID that would prove that.
Okay, great. Thanks for that, Madam Clerk. Okay, we'll vote on that. Thank you. And that carries. Thank you. And that brings us to the end. We didn't have any updates from council, updates from the mayor. And so I had written a few things down. As we all know, it is summertime in Muskoka, so very, very busy time. It's lots going on. There's some events coming up, music on the barge every Sunday. Rib Fest is coming up. We have the open water swim at Gull Lake, Rotary Gull Lake Park this weekend. Pirate Fest is coming the August long weekend. Yep, so August long weekend. Then we have Make a Splash coming up as well. And speaking of all this water stuff, we just want to be sure everybody is safe, whether you're a visitor or whether you live here. Please be safe around the water. It's been a pretty tragic summer so far in Muskoka, and those are whether they're visiting or it's never not tragic when we lose someone in such a horrible way. So our thoughts are with those families who have lost loved ones. I think we need to talk about, we did just have a fire ban lifted. We are on high still. Chief is nodding. Just be cautious while burning, obviously, and let's just make sure everybody gets out of the summer safely. And Madam Clerk, what else were we talking about earlier? Anything that I should be mentioning? Well, the election, obviously, the election is coming up, and so we won't, no, I'm just saying, we just talked about registering to vote and how important it is to vote. And I think I'll just leave it at that. If something else comes up, maybe I'll just save it for next time. Okay, so that's that. Anything you think I should add? No, okay, just move it along, okay. Well, that's great. So that brings us to a committee of a whole. We're going to adjourn. So a motion to adjourn. Councillor Strength and Councillor Robinson. Okay, and please vote. That carries. Thank you. Okay, are there any disclosures? We are in council. Any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none. It's moved by Councillor Morphy, second by Councillor Robinson. Be it resolved that the council minutes from June 16, 2026 be adopted as circulated. Please vote. Carries, thank you. It is moved by Councillor Strength, second by Councillor Varney. Be it resolved that the special council official plan minutes from June 16, 2026 be adopted as circulated. Please vote. Carries, thank you. It's moved by Councillor Karen, second by Councillor Hunter. Be it resolved the Committee of the Whole minutes from June 16, 2026 be adopted as circulated. Please vote on that. That carries, thank you. Okay, so I need a mover and seconder for this motion. Extended councillor absence. Councillor Robinson, Councillor Varney. Whereas Section 259(1)(c) of the Municipal Act states that a member's seat becomes vacant if the member is absent from the meeting of council for 3 successive months without being authorized to do so by a resolution of council. Now therefore be it resolved the paid leave formally requested by Councillor Peter Johnston from July 1st to November 14th, 2026 be approved. Okay. Just call the question on that, or? All right. Please vote. And that carries. Thank you. It's moved by Counselor Jorgensen, second by Counselor Cairns. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2026-40 to confirm the council meeting held on July 21st, 2026 be passed. Please vote. And a motion to adjourn, Counselor Jorgensen and Counselor Hunter. And please vote. Okay. See ya planning? Okay, see ya planning.